Welcome to the Visionary Fiction Alliance Authors Interview Series. I'm your host, Brad Swift, and it's my pleasure to spend time with other visionary fiction authors. Before I introduce my first guest, I would like to share something straight from the Visionary Fiction Alliance website. It goes like this. As the world evolves away from the Newtonian model of the five senses to the more evolved quantum model that includes the sense of spirit so resurgent today, visionary fiction is rapidly becoming the genre of choice to express that evolution and predict the breathtaking future that might follow the anticipated leaps. Under its broader umbrella are now gathering works previously classified as spiritual, metaphysical, or science fiction. The Visionary Fiction Alliance aims to provide a home base and a central clearinghouse for readers, writers, and researchers dedicated to this endeavor. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, there are multiple purposes to the Visionary Fiction Alliance. One is to increase awareness of the genre. Secondly, to help readers discover, explore, and enjoy visionary fiction. And to create to mentor new writers who wish to explore this genre, and to provide resources for writers of visionary fiction, and ultimately to be a place where readers can find visionary fiction books and engage in discussion with the authors. Now, our web home is brand new, has been newly redesigned, is at visionaryfictionalliance.com, where you will find a ton of new information and new features for readers and authors of visionary fiction. So I invite you to drop on by. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce you to one of the founding members of the Visionary Fiction Alliance, dating back to March of 2012. She is one of three visionary authors who came together, originally on Goodreads, and decided to link up their three websites as a way to promote each other. And you know, as the old Virginia Slim commercial used to say, we've come a long way, baby. Now, Jodine's most recent novel is The Hidden Abbey. It was released this past January with the intriguing tagline, "A fated love and a sacred destiny brought through time." Jodine Turner, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brad. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm glad to have you. You are once again a first timer. This is our first official one like this itself. So now my plan as the person who does these interviews is to start each of these interviews with the same two questions that are kind of joined together. First question is, how would you define visionary fiction? And why do you think it's important to our world today?
Excellent questions, timely questions too.
Yes.
Yes. I think I've refined my definition, sort of an elevator pitch definition, to be visionary fiction is all about transformation of consciousness. That's the bottom line. You've read the various definitions. There's several components when you started the show, but I think that is the important bottom line. Shifts in consciousness, shifts in evolution, human evolution. So that would be my definition.
Yeah, very good.
And when I wrote my article back in 2009, Visionary Fiction, the new kid on the block, that was the article that I posted in Goodreads. And that's what got the three of us together, Selena, Shannon, and myself. And in that, I went into various definitions. But again, I'll just say the bottom line is a shift in consciousness. And it's important today. I mean, there's some real opportunities with the global pandemic. Visionary fiction gives us the opportunity to help readers find within themselves their own soul quest, to find within themselves, through the characters in the novel, a vision of how the world could be, to help find within themselves that shift in consciousness. That's the whole purpose of the genre. And in today's world, I think it's really important. You know, there's a famous author named Toni Morrison, and she said, this is precisely the time when artists go to work. When we have turbulent times like this is precisely the time when artists go to work. We do language. This is how civilizations heal. So powerful. This is how civilizations heal, through words, and particularly in visionary fiction, given its definition and its purpose.
Yeah, very good, very good. Like you said, a very apt quote, and this is certainly some turbulent times that we're facing right now as we're recording this. Now, by the time somebody watches it, we don't know what the situation will be, but I think you can find that turbulence is pretty common here in the 21st century anyway. So you kind of answered this already, but let me see if my question was, when did you first realize this genre of visionary fiction existed, and how did you discover it? You know, was it before the 2009 or?
Yeah, my first book was published in 2000, and like many visionary fiction authors, I wasn't sure what genre to pitch it in. It didn't fit fantasy, it didn't fit spiritual. So I had a women's group, and one of the people in the women's group said she had an editor who really liked to work with women who spoke about divine love, about the goddess, and that's what a lot of my novels are about. And she referred me to a woman, Leslie Kellis Payne, and she's on our website. She's an editor. And when I hired Leslie, she told me, this is visionary fiction. Who knew? So I started looking it up, and I discovered people like Monty Joines, Michael Garrian, Hal Bennett Zimmer. And so I did a lot of research, and I decided, you know, I'm going to really put my efforts into promoting this genre. So that's when I wrote the article and put it in submission for Writer's Journal in 2009.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's interesting. A few years ago, as I was writing, it's not that different from your story. You know, I started thinking of myself as a visionary author, and you know, then I thought, well, I'm writing fiction, so maybe I should be, you know, visionary fiction, and you know, I pretty much went on, you know, Google to see if, you know, that had been already taken. I think I was even thinking about, you know, visionaryfiction.com is, you know, a website or something. And that's when I discovered Visionary Fiction Alliance. And I think, oh, well, great. I don't have to reinvent the wheel here. It's already being done. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, I have a couple of quotes that I'd like to read and have you comment on, since they're quotes from you that I have found. Visionary fiction describes a world as we might imagine it could become at its best. It provides a reading experience where the reader has the possibility of a shift in their consciousness, as I have always maintained. Visionary fiction speaks the language of the soul.
Yes. Yeah. Good quote.
I thought so.
Yeah, and that pretty much represents how I approach visionary fiction, how I describe it for people who don't know what visionary fiction is. It speaks the language of the soul. You know, I read a lot of Celtic fiction, our ancient Celtic peoples, and they had a term called Imram, I-M-R-A-M, Imram, and that was a soul journey, basically a soul quest. And in the physical realm, it was people that got into a boat and rowed to the end of the world to find themselves. I actually have this on my desk all the time. This is a representation. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah, it's a boat, is it not?
Yeah.
Almost like a canoe.
Yeah, and it's very Celtic look. And the Celtic Imram, I think that's an ancient word for what visionary fiction provides for the reader. As I mentioned before, it gives them the opportunity to have their own soul quest through the characters in the story, through their experiences. So they not only read about it, it's not a head thing, it's a lived experience.
Yeah.
And it has a lot to do with the soul, because visionary fiction has esoteric wisdom embedded in it, has spiritual wisdom embedded in it. So this is an opportunity for readers to up their game, to up their consciousness.
Yes. Yeah, very good. And even more recently, just I think in just really the matter of the last few days, you wrote something else on the for visionary fiction readers, where you identify yourself first as a visionary fiction author, and then you went on to say we are all now living and experiencing what the philosophy of visionary fiction is all about. It's about
Yeah.
transforming awareness and consciousness.
Yes.
Hopefully, like visionary fiction, we are envisioning a world as we dream it could be.
Yes.
Visionary fiction stories can be a beacon of hope. What do you envision the world could be? Now, you asked that question kind of rhetorically to the group. I'd like to get your own answer to that vision. What do you envision that the world could be?
Right. Okay, so let me come to this in a roundabout way.
Okay.
The visionary fiction that I write has always had the focus, the whole series, of a certain priestess who's facing turbulent times, and she's reborn again and again and again during these turbulent times. The first book was in Atlantis, The Awakening, Rebirth of Atlantis, where there was the demise of Atlantis, turbulent times. The second book in the series, Carry on the Flame books, were during the Dark Ages, where there was a suppression of the divine feminine and the human feminine, turbulent times. Today's World, turbulent times, that was the third book and the fourth book. Turbulent times. I think we have an opportunity, just like I said with your quote, there's an opportunity for people to step up, and it doesn't have to be in big ways. It can be in small ways, in everyday life. And the opportunity, I think, in this stage of the game, the turbulent times for today's world, I think we're embracing the reemergence of that divine feminine. And what I mean by that is the principle, not the gender, the principle of cooperation, collaboration, love, working together, partnership, respect, kindness. Those things are reemerging. And with the turbulence that we have and the difficult times and the chaos, we have the opportunity to move through that with these kind of qualities that I just mentioned, the cooperation and collaboration. We have a chance now to reinvent ourselves. And, today is the spring equinox, the rebirth of nature to come into the summer and to fruition. So the energies are with us to do something like this.
Yeah, very good. I think that's a very hopeful, positive, and inspiring message that you're delivering there, both in answering that question and also in your books themselves. I know with my recent book, The Fringe Candidate, it's really the whole series is about, us coming together.
Yes.
And I was, sharing with my wife just the other day, I said, isn't it ironic that the way that we might end up coming together is by having to stay apart?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I see it, I'm not watching a lot of the news right now because it's not really serving me. But when I do watch it, what I really am looking for are the inspiring stories that really shows our ability to come together and be creative and move through whatever the turbulent times are. And we're much more powerful when we're having that spirit of collaboration and cooperation that you're mentioning.
Yeah. My husband and I are hunkered down, as are most people globally. And, it gives all of us the chance to have a collective inner retreat.
Yeah.
This is a unique experience. I don't think we've had anything like this before in our history in quite the same way. And, one of the other qualities, when you asked me, what do I envision the world could be? One of the other qualities, and this is my theme for my book, is love, but embodied love in a way that it's not a mental construct, in a way that it's lived daily, being grounded in your body and your emotions, no spiritual bypasses, grounded in your body and emotions, so that you're there in the trenches with the pain and the suffering and helping yourself and others collaboratively to make it through that.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Mm.
I'd like to turn our focus just a bit, and that's to the process of writing itself. So one of the questions I wanted to ask, do you find that writing visionary fiction, does it energize or exhaust you?
You know, that's an interesting question. I have such a passion for writing that it exhilarates me. It
Okay.
does. Now, that's separate from rewriting and marketing. Yeah, the process of writing is exhilarating. Yeah. And, even those times when it's like, oh my gosh, it's just not coming out right, it's still a process of discovery and creativity and tapping into that connection with the muse or the divine or your soul or your heart, so you can get it out on paper and express it that way.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Exactly. In fact, I find some of those, like you said, while they are some of the most challenging times when it looks like you've written yourself into a blind alley, it may have to, tear out a lot of pages and start over. Oftentimes the muse comes to the rescue, and, and that's some of the most evocative scenes, those that you didn't know you were going to write them at the time. So, yeah.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. Vic Smith, one of the members, admin members on the VFA, called that the flyby. It's an inspiration. It flies by, and you have to grab it because you'll often forget it if you don't grab it then. I
Yes.
have pen and paper by my bedside. So, yeah, the flyby.
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of my inspiration, too, with the flybys, a lot of the scenes, the inspiration for the plots and the stories have come through dreams or meditations. And also, I happen to be a consecrated priestess, which simply means mediator between the worlds of the seen and the unseen. And you can mediate through ritual, ceremony, writing, art, healing, dance. So it's just a medium between those two worlds, the seen and the unseen. And when I lived in Glastonbury, where all of my novels take place, I would often go to the Chalice Well and do journeys, meditation journeys. And I'd be given a lot of information that way of what to put in my story, how to flesh it out.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I had some of my greatest inspirations walking my dog around the lake that's right next to us. And he's loving these turbulent times because we're walking 3, 4, 5 times a day when normally, he's lucky if he gets one good walk in, so.
Yeah.
Must have heard me talking because he's barking in the background now. So.
Oh, isn't that something? He's connected with you, isn't he? Great. I love it. Yeah.
So, what are, I do a fair amount of work with my, as a writing coach with aspiring writers. So what are some of the traps for aspiring writers that maybe you could point out that they could maybe not spend too much time in or move around?
Yeah. I think that there are so many articles out there on how to write for your audience, tips on writing. And I would say for your first draft, just pour your heart out.
Yeah.
Just pour your heart out. Let it come out as you want to express it. Then you can refine things later. But, let your voice be true and authentic throughout.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. And that's, I think, part of the reason we write to begin with is to find that voice and to let that voice out. So if you're constantly, got your editor turned on, while you're trying to write, I often use the analogy, that's like trying to drive down the highway with one foot on the brake and one foot on the, accelerator. It just doesn't work, and it's pretty rough on the engine as well. So
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy. It's rough on the engine too, our bodies and our hearts. Yeah, I think, um, if we aren't expressing our authenticity and what we really want to say, then we are hurting the engine. We are hurting our bodies and our souls and our hearts,
yeah,
because that expression wants to come through.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Now, if you could tell your younger writing self, maybe when you first started writing,
Mhm.
anything that you've learned along the way
Yeah.
that might have made the journey a little smoother, what might it have been?
I That's a little difficult because I don't see the writing journey as um, as bumpy. I see more of the marketing journey. But having said that, something's just coming to mind. I would say when you are stuck at a certain point in your story, and this happened for me, I was writing about in the Carry on the Flame series, um, the young woman was going through a process of grief. Shayla was going through a process of grief. And I found I couldn't write. I had to go back, go in and deep, and process my own grief before I could write it in the story. So I would say when you're stopped, it wasn't a writing block, but when you're stopped in the process of writing, could be a writing block. Whenever you're finding difficulty, bring it back to yourself and see, am I not processing something? Am I holding on to something? Because you can only take your writing and your readers as far as you can go. Personally, I used to be a therapist years ago, and that was the same thing in therapy. You can only take your clients as far as you're willing to go. So I
Mm,
think the same thing applies to writing.
yeah, yeah, very good, very good. Now, this one I'm going to ask is, again, I didn't know where this interview was going to go, and it's pretty clear the answer, but maybe you can expand on it as well. And it's our final question. Um, I originally wrote it, how, do you view writing as a kind of spiritual practice? And obviously you do. So maybe the question really is, how do you view writing as a kind of spiritual practice, and how can others view that as well? How can they get the most out of their writing, not just as far as producing a finished product as a book, but that the writing journey, as you call it, can be something that nurtures their spirit and their soul.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Brad. Really good question. Um, yeah, I think if one focuses on the true expression, their truth, and lets that express itself in the writing, then that's a spiritual journey. We all come in with a mission in life. And if yours is to be a writer, then if you're writing, you're fulfilling that mission. You're connecting with the divinity within. So if whatever you connect with, whether it be nature, God, divinity within, whatever, connect with that and let it inspire your expression of what your purpose is.
Yeah, perfect, perfect, perfect. Because I call my writing practice, my coaching practice, Write on Purpose, because it was a
Wow.
a part of my own journey as a life coach who really focused on life purpose and how to bring purpose and writing to that. So I took this position on. I'm fairly new to, particularly to the steering team of the Visionary Fiction Alliance, but I just had this sense that this would be something that could be of service to other people and that I would get a lot out of it. And certainly that has been the case today. So, Jodine, I want to thank you very much for spending time with us, for opening your heart and your soul to, contribute not only through your books, but also through this interview. I will remind people that The Hidden Abbey, A Fated Journey and a Sacred Destiny Wrought Through Time, is now available. I know it's available on Amazon because I'm looking at it right here on the page next to me. Is it available at other places yet, or mainly on Amazon?
Mainly on Amazon, but any venue.
Any
Any venue.
venue. Okay, very good, very
Yeah,
good,
brick and mortar can order at any other online venue.
very good. Well,
And
again,
Brad,
thank
I just want to tell you too, your questions are very evocative and they're wonderful, and precise and purposeful. I loved them. Thank
Very
you.
good. Well, I'll claim a few of the questions, but some of those questions also came from, I believe it was Aaron or Vic. Again, I kind of get the other people on the steering committee, so they brought them out, and so I was able to kind of pick and choose the ones that I thought would be most appropriate. So
Oh,
thank you so much.
yeah.
And in just a moment, we're going to let Jodine exit, but in just a moment, we'll have the Writing on Purpose coaching tip for the day. Oh, thank you again, Jodine.
Thank you, Brad. My pleasure.
Again, welcome back. This is Brad Swift again, of course. The interview that we were conducting today is sponsored by Write on Purpose Coaching, my coaching business. And so I wanted to, complete today with a short Writing on Purpose coaching tip. Now, in my coaching practice, Write on Purpose, many of my clients are aspiring authors and writers. They're people who want to move from the recurring, maybe a thought that they've had for years, maybe in some cases decades, this thought of one day, someday, I want to write X, Y, or Z, whatever it is. Many of them want to write a book. And yet the thought of just the whole notion of writing a big, thick book freezes them, kind of like a deer in the headlamps. So I have found that writing and publishing a book can just be too overwhelming for a lot of aspiring authors. Now, staring at a blank sheet of paper or a computer screen, knowing there's still hundreds of pages to go, can be very daunting, even for the most experienced writer. So the question is, well, what do you do about it? Well, I'm reminded of the old riddle, how do you eat an elephant? Well, of course, the answer is you eat the elephant one bite at a time. Now, how might that equate for some aspiring authors? Is to start with smaller bites. That could be either by writing short stories or essays or articles. In fact, that's how I started. Over 30 years ago, I started writing articles and then also short stories, and I've never regretted it. And I'll explore some of the many benefits to this approach on another time. So that's the Write on Purpose coaching tip for today. Now, I would say that if you gain value from this interview, and I don't see how you could not, there was so much rich material in it, I would invite you to share it with some other of writing friends, people that you think would get value out of it, or those who maybe you'd like to introduce them to visionary fiction itself. And so, until next time, remember our web home of Visionary Fiction Alliance is just that, visionaryfictionalliance.com. And we will see you soon.